I'm just going to take a minute to introduce myself and Erasmus Courses Ireland, and then hand you over to Aisling from the Lingua Viva Centre, who's going to give you a very enjoyable and productive webinar this afternoon. So my name is Frances, and I have been with Erasmus Courses Ireland for around 4 years now. So Erasmus Courses Ireland is a group of 8 independent, privately owned training centres across Dublin, Cork and Galway. They're all registered with the Ministry of Education and also have national and international additional accreditations. They offer a wide range of courses for educators and for academic support staff across Europe. And the courses include English and Irish culture, 21st century skills, AI in the classroom, CLIL, methodology courses for secondary teachers, for primary teachers, courses on well-being, inclusion. And so all of our courses are mapped with Erasmus Plus priorities. So they all have the impact, the outcomes, and they're all measurable. So all of the centres have OID numbers, can help you with any documentation that you need. And in addition, they are all in Ireland, obviously, which is an incredibly welcoming and safe place for students, for teachers. And yeah, so all participants that I've spoken with have had a fantastic experience in Ireland. So our schools have many years of experience and expertise in the field of teaching language, teaching methodology courses. So I hope that you will gain a lot from this webinar. And then after this webinar, we'll be following up with an email so you can learn a little bit more about us. So from there, I'm going to pass over to Aisling and I'm going to turn my camera off if that's okay. So,
Of course.
so
Hello,
if you
everyone.
want,
Thank you very much, Francis, for introducing us all. It's great to have an opportunity to spend some time with all of you lovely people from all over the world. My name, as Francis told you, is Aisling. I'm one of the head teachers for teacher training in the Lingua Viva Centre. I train teachers who are coming on Erasmus, but we train a lot of our own teachers on the TESOL course so that we know our teachers are trained to the highest possible standards. I do a lot of materials management. I design materials. For a lot of our CLIL courses and our Erasmus courses, we design the courses specifically for the people who are coming. So we ask them what they're interested in, we ask them what they know, what they'd like to know, so that we can make sure that we give them really a boutique experience of their course in Ireland. The Lingua Viva School has been in Ireland for about 47 years. And the owners are also teachers in the school. So it's very much a hands-on, family-oriented experience. And we are delighted in the summer to welcome children from all over Europe and all over the world to our summer school. And that's sort of what we'll be talking about a little bit today. Well, quite a lot today, actually. I'm hoping at the end of this session that you're going to have a better idea of how we can use CLIL in summer schools. We're going to explore some very practical strategies, hopefully some engaging activities, and give you an idea how you would design a CLIL lesson or a visit. I'm aware that most of you are ESL or ELA English teachers of some kind. If you find that I'm speaking too quickly, please do let me know. Put a note in the chat. Also, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat and we will try to get to them before the end. Yeah, I think that's about it. So let's get started. When we think about the things that we enjoyed in the classroom when we were in school, I think we probably would find that it's really about a mixture of what we learn in the classroom, but also that maybe outdoor or certainly experiential learning. You know, everybody used to love being in the art room or the science lab or the PE because it was more fun. So when we think about summer schools, they are really powerful because they allow us to combine all of those things, combine the classroom with that experiential learning. It's particularly useful when we combine the experiential learning with communicative language training. In other words, encouraging students to talk to each other, to use the language that they have. And as we all know, that can be a challenge. So the summer school, I think, is a perfect place for us to overcome those challenges for the students. And we're going to talk about how we might do that. Um, just a quick review of CLIL with respect to summer schools. I'm certainly not going to give you a CLIL lecture now, but just to give an idea of how it fits with the summer school experience. We know that CLIL, we're talking about the 4 Cs. So in terms of content, we're thinking about subject knowledge. For us in Lingua Viva, we are, I'll show you in a moment, we're right by the sea for our summer school. So we do a lot of work on marine ecosystems and sustainability. So then our communication then will be the language for observing, talking about the things that they observe, the language that they can use for their reports, etc. And then when we talk about the C for cognition, we're thinking about the kinds of higher order thinking skills that we can introduce with those subjects. So comparing, predicting, explaining, and then obviously producing new content. So producing projects, producing videos, producing role plays, producing something new and interesting that the students have come up with. And then that one that can be challenging, I think, sometimes culture in a mixed multicultural summer school that almost teaches itself. The children are learning it without us even doing the input, but certainly we do the input. So if we're thinking about culture, we're thinking about both the global and the local perspective for things like protecting coastal environments. It really is an easy way to teach these things. So let us, oh, why is my computer refusing to move? There we go. So we're thinking about using the communicative method, so the communicative language teaching, in train with the CLIL, so it allows us to have authentic English in authentic contexts. So we're not just teaching English so that they now know the past simple or they now know vocabulary for sport. They need to use the language, and therefore we're teaching the language they need to use. Why go? Oh, there we go. I'm being very silly. So just to give you an idea of us, this is us in our summer school. You can see we're in a place called Dalkey, just outside Dublin City. We're right by the sea. We occasionally get lovely sunny days. We could see we took photos on our lovely sunny days. This is the school where we run our summer school. It's an old abbey, and it is a girls' secondary school during the year. And as you can see, we're right on the beach. We also have access to some wonderful sports facilities. We've got sports halls inside and outside, and that really helps us to think of the themes that we want to use for our summer schools. We think about what we have, think about the materials we have, we think about what might be interesting and thrilling for the students, and we work from there. So the reason I think CLIL is so perfect for this summer school experience is because we're not tied to a curriculum the way we would be in our classrooms. So our themes can be flexible and we can think about things that would be interesting for the students. Certainly anything to do with water seems to attract our teen students very much. So we talk about water world, we think about the ecosystems, we make them eco explorers. We do a lot of work in science and nature in that marine environment. But rather than it all being in the classroom based, we try to focus on making sure that they get out of the classroom, that they're having that multisensory experience. So the key thing for us is connecting what they do in the classroom in the morning with the afternoon activities. So for example, if our morning theme is eco explorers, we might focus on recycling, the language for recycling. And in the afternoon, we might do a beach cleanup or a craft project. The first year that my boss, Ian, suggested a beach cleanup project, I thought he was out of his mind. I thought the students wouldn't have any interest in doing a beach cleanup project, but it turned out to be one of the favorite things that year. So it just shows you, listen to your boss. We also do a lot of fun things in the water, of course, as well. We do paddle boarding and we do canoeing and all of that kind of thing. So our water world experience isn't only educational. Oops. So because they need to use the language, it becomes an authentic language experience because they're coming up and designing the language themselves. They're using the language for a purpose. So let's think about you're a teacher in the classroom and you're preparing your students for a class visit to the beach. So the first thing we're going to think about is what sort of English the students are going to need, because that's what we need to prepare them for in the classroom. So we'll be thinking about the vocabulary for beach elements, sand and rock pool, those kinds of things. Question forms, very importantly, because A, we'll be asking them in the classroom, but B, we want them to ask them of our experts when we bring them to the beach with a beach expert. And then we need to think about statements so that they can design, for example, a poster about recycling or about appropriate ways to behave on the beach, that kind of thing. Don't drop litter, we must protect, etc. So, oops, there we go. One of the things I quite like to do is work with the students to think about what types of words we're learning, so that when they're trying to build sentences, and if you think about A2 learners, for example, particularly, they're really building sentences. The sentences don't come naturally to them. So we would think about texture words and color words and shape words and plant words. And as we learn them, we encourage the students to write them on a post-it note and put them on the wall, so that as a class, we're developing this encyclopedia almost of language, but it's all from the students. So it's the words they thought were interesting or the words they didn't know. We very often will choose a word of the day. So, which word today did you find interesting and why? Draw a picture of it, put it in a sentence, explain it to your neighbor, that kind of thing. So that all the time that we're using the language, the students are trying to make it their own. They're trying to gain ownership of the language that we're talking about. So we might look at something like this. I have included in the slides, and if you want more, I can give you more, some of the materials that I have used. So I know all of our teachers are very busy and you don't have time to be designing lessons. And I am a great believer in taking what's out there and using it. So this is a very nice piece of material from one of the Irish wildlife websites, and it's all about shellfish. So I have stolen shamelessly my material from there, and I have made these kinds of sheets for the student. So you can see that this is for maybe an A2 class, but it's easy to upgrade it for a more sophisticated learners by just reducing the amount of support that we give them. So we'll start with a picture so they know what it looks like, and then can they describe the item? So shape words, color words, texture words, and then place words. Where would we find it? Is it stuck? Is it in a rock pool? Is it in a tidal pool? Is it only there at low tide? Is it also there at high tide, etc.? And then we'll make sure that the students have the support to make sentences. As I mentioned to you, the A2 students often struggle with making a sentence. So we want to try to take off the language pressure so that they can use the content that we're teaching them. So with this kind of a sentence frame, the students can make good sentences with the language that we're teaching them. So common limpet is grey or grey-white. You can see we're pushing them a little bit for the language. We're not just looking for grey. It's ridged. It has ridges on the outside. It lives on a rock in a tidal pool, for example. So the language frame will help them to make the descriptions. So obviously that is almost a morning's work. The students will, one of the ways I've sometimes done it is just have photos around the room, and the students pick the items that they're interested in. We have information sheets about the items, and they make up statements about the items that they find. Again, this is where the CLIL becomes real, because we're preparing the students for the language they'll need when they go on their afternoon trip. And after a day, of course, they're all aware that the language that they learn in the classroom will be the language that they use on their experiential learning in the afternoon. It's not all project-based. Sometimes they're off playing sports. Sometimes, they're going to visit buildings. But again, the morning work will have been preparing them for that, so that the need to use the language is an authentic need. So the use of the language comes from the students. Okay, so with our lower level students, a very helpful way to give them support for making sentences is by using these high frequency verbs. So using have, can, and are. So obviously, we don't have a lot of elephants in Ireland, but it was a poster I had a photo of, so I'm just showing that one to you. So we can talk about the things they have. Elephants have a trunk, they have herds, they have calves. So we're talking about nouns here. Things that they can do, we're talking about verbs. They can play, they can travel, they can remember. Things that they are. So here we're having our adjectives. They're gray, they're wrinkly, they're heavy. Um, so using those high frequency verbs, you can see that it's quite easy to combine them to make sentences. And obviously not elephants ideally, but maybe marine creatures. Again, using existing resources, you can see I've taken this from my Seashore booklet that I showed you earlier. And all of this was done for me. I didn't have to do it because one of the things people say to me often on CLIL courses is, oh, it's too much work. It's, I have to make too many materials. I think if you go on English language websites, if you look at primary school materials for English language or early secondary school materials for English language, a lot of that material is suitable for your students to use. So here's a jellyfish, and again, the important language, tentacles and hood. So they're learning how to describe these animals. So we've learned all of these words now, and as you well know, introducing the words in class is not anything like enough to allow students to use them outside class. They will have forgotten them by the time they get on the bus or walk down to the beach. So we do a lot of vocabulary practice just to ensure that the students will remember what they're doing, and mostly that's through fun. So this is what I would say to the students. We're going to do a match-up race. We're going to play in teams. I'm going to give you a description of a creature or a thing. So this is what they would get. They're clusters of cone-shaped shells on the rocks. Remember, this is how we've described them early in the class. They're well used to seeing these descriptions. It's brown seaweed filled with air bubbles or filled with air bladders. So this is how we will have described them in the class. So all of this language will be familiar to them. So the names of the creatures are here on the ground. So bladderwrack, limpets, mussels, all those words are on the ground. The students sit round in groups. I call out or display the description of the creature or the thing on the board. And the first team who picks up the name of the creature is on their way to winning a point. But that's not all. They have to also perhaps tell us what tidal zone the creature is found in, and someone from the group has to draw it on the board. So you can see that in doing this, we're giving them opportunities to collaborate around the language. So I, who can't draw at all, might be asked to draw a mussel on the board. And my colleagues will be saying, no, it's not cone-shaped. That's the one that's a razor shape or whatever. So they have to use their language to get the points, basically. So that's quite a fun race. Everybody loves a race. So that one's a good one. Another one I quite like is this, which is backs to the board. So a student stands with their back to the board, and I show a picture of a seashore animal or a plant. And the people who are in front have to describe it to their teammate. It's a bivalve shell, it's a gray-white. And if they can guess the name of the creature, then that team wins the point. So again, you can see that what we're building in the classroom is multiple opportunities to use the vocabulary in a way that's useful for the students. They want to win the game, they want to win the race. So because of doing this, the students have built confidence before they go outside. And when they arrive at the beach, they're ready. They're not lost. Oops, there we go. So just to give you some examples of things we might do when we're at the beach, we might give them a sheet to record the plants and animals that they found that day. They might take photos of them. They all have phones. I'm sure it's the same in your countries. They all have phones. So they take photos of the things that they found. Usually I suggest that they put a euro or something beside them so we get an idea of the size. Then when they come back to the classroom, they can make either an online poster or print the pictures, depending on how your budget works. We can't always print things. And on Fridays and Saturdays at our summer schools, we have a presentation time. So each classroom presents to the other classrooms. One of the things we have found very useful for that is to have the same themes throughout the classrooms. So if the C1 students are presenting about marine life, they may be presenting at a higher level, but the A1 students will still have an idea of the vocabulary and some of the verbs, etc., that they will use, so that there is connection possible between the A2 and the C1 groups. So everybody's working on the same themes. It also helps in that first week when no matter how well I think you do your placement tests, there is some movement, I think, in that first week. So if they move from a B1 to a B2 class, they're still going to be working on the same theme, at least, as they were working on before, so they don't lose a day. Also, there's one of the things that is a lot of fun. If we go on to exploreyoursshore.ie, they can upload the information they found about the animals to this website, and they've now become part of a countrywide survey, which usually they feel pretty good about, that they are making a difference countrywide. And again, this allows us to talk about the culture piece in our 4Cs, which is good. Another thing we can do sometimes when we come back to the classroom is, for example, if they have done a beach cleanup, they'll make notes about what they've been collecting. And then they might ask the other groups, what type of rubbish, what do you think this is made from? Is it breakable? Can you tear it? Is it edible? How long do you think it would last in the ecosystem? One of the fun games we do is we put up pictures of the rubbish that they've collected around the classroom, and the other group who didn't do this activity have to go and stand and make a note on post-it notes of how long they think this material will last. And they're competing against each other to have an idea about the biodegradable nature of the different materials. So that can be quite fun. And it means particularly that if you have an A2 group who are weaker, they can still know more than the C1 group who are stronger. And that's always a good thing, I think. I like people to be equally engaged. Okay, so I mentioned that's the seashore. I mentioned to you that we also had some very good sports facilities, and I think most summer camps do. So I thought I'd mention something that you could do even if you're an inland summer camp. So one of the things which I think is a marvelous title for a CLIL activity is Active English. So we look at movement and the science of movement. So we're thinking about some of those great science themes like air resistance and force and drag, and then some of the great language themes like comparatives and quantifiers. And again, you'll see that these are language themes that will come from last week, right? So if last week we were talking about the seashore, we will have been comparing, we will have been quantifying. So that language moves into the second week with us. And then we also have the language that they have to use to talk about things, which ball goes further, who lasted longest, etc. So we call it our sports science CLIL lab. They might then, when they go out to the experiential learning, when they leave the classroom, they might be looking at things like, does the size of a ball affect how far you can kick it? And then we also look at health issues when we go into our experiential learning. So let me have a look at that with you. So they're learning those science concepts whilst they're using their English naturally. So again, you either use materials that you already have or use materials that you could easily get online. I got these from twinkle.ie. I'm sure there's twinkle.fr and IT and everybody else. Twinkle is very inexpensive monthly subscription, but they also have a lot of free materials for teachers to use. So here this is talking about air resistance. And then we go into investigating air resistance. This is in the classroom still. Students make parachutes of different sizes using different materials, and they time how long it takes to fall, maybe from the first floor down to the ground floor. could see I did put in a little bit of language learning here that wasn't in the original Twinkle because it wasn't designed for English language learners. So just so that they know the names of the materials. Then you'll see that the instructions that I'm giving here are very, very simple. They are simple verbs, no big explanations. Everything is very short and clear because I want the students to be able to replicate this language when they're speaking to each other. And then they're going to drop their parachutes, use the stopwatch, repeat 3 times from the same height and the different sizes, and then they will take their data. In terms of coming to their conclusions, the language that you require from them will depend on their language level, right? So again, I tend to look at the lowest language level. So here we are at sort of an A2 level. So I can say as the length of the parachute side decreased, the time taken for the parachute to fall, and they have to decide whether that's increased or decreased. And that's the language that they're going to use there. And then they're literally just putting in the details. But then we're looking for something a little bit more experiential. This is because. Why did this happen? Because we increased the air resistance. So we are looking for those science concepts in there. So you'll notice that we're looking at comparatives that we were using before, and we're using functional language so that they can compare each other's results, so they have to talk to each other. You'll notice again how they're embedded. We don't have to teach everything separately. It's all part of the lesson. We want to teach smart rather than hard. So this is a really nice lesson that we do outside then. It's our science of movement lesson. So we're understanding how heart rate changes with physical activity. So we will have done some work in the morning about muscle groups and taking pulses and how your pulse relates to your heart, etc. We'll have learned some of those instructional verbs like run and jump and stretch, etc. We'll look at some of the language they'll need to collaborate. Can you check this? Let's compare results, etc. And of course, we're working on the cognition skills like predicting and measuring and comparing and all of that good stuff. So when we're teaching it, we might have to think about ways to teach it that are fun. I think the game Simon Says is similar in many countries. I know it's not all Simon, it's where you give an instruction, but the student only does it if you say Simon Says. So if I told you all to stand up and you stood up, you would be wrong because I didn't say Simon Says. But if I said Simon Says, touch your nose, then you would do it. So it's a great way to practice actions. If you're not familiar with the game, this is a link to how you play the game, but I think you probably are. We might need to look at verbs for actions, body parts, some of the experiment vocabulary, compare some of the science words, friction, etc. But it shouldn't mean more work. It should really mean that we're integrating more cleverly. Okay, so the instructions to students, again, you can see that the instructions are basic English. So I'm repeating and repeating and repeating and repeating so that they're getting lots of practice with the same language. So I might say, take your resting pulse. Of course, in the classroom, we learned what that was. Count your heartbeats for 20 seconds and then multiply by 3. So we get a minute's pulse. Then they do their activity, either running or jumping or skipping for a minute. Then they take their pulse and they record the results. Now, it's difficult to do that yourself. It's much easier to do it if you're collaborating. So you're already setting the circumstances for students to use their English collaboratively without you having to push an agenda, which I quite like. So they're going to have their results. What is fun to do is a circuit so that they're doing something different all the time because kids get bored, obviously, very quickly. So we might have a station circuit where you jump as far as you can and then you use a tape measure to measure. So again, you could hear there's some lovely English happening here, right? We're talking about lengths, we're talking about centimeters, we're talking about meters, we're comparing. And then the language, my jump is longer than yours, your jump is shorter than mine. Oh, we jumped the same length, same distance. Then we could have a balance challenge, which again is quite fun. We could do sprint timings. And again, here we're talking about time. So we have to use a stopwatch and we have to talk about seconds, which is really nice. I don't imagine they'll be much longer than seconds or minutes. And then we can maybe do a strength count where they do sit-ups or push-ups for 30 seconds, and then they just talk about how many they did. So you can see here, again, I feel like I'm pounding my drum. It's repetition, 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 so that they're really getting familiar with the language that we want them to use. So when we finish, we can interview each other and complete comparison statements. Who is the fastest in our group? Who balanced the longest? Who had the biggest improvements in their pulse from one end to another? We can give them sentence frames to help them with this. So blah ran faster or slower than blah. So Maria ran faster than Juan. That increased more than whatever. So we can give them the language, if we haven't been using it all the time, to make life simpler so that they're more likely to use it. So they can either then go back to the classroom and make a poster explaining what they did, and then explain that to the school on their Friday or Saturday presentation. Or they can talk about the activities they did, what they learned about the body and the results. And then importantly, because we want to have something that's new and that they create, we want them to come up with some advice for staying healthy. So we want to make sure that we're not only looking at lower order thinking skills where they're, matching and that kind of thing. We want to make sure we're going for the higher order thinking skills where they're coming up with their own material. A fun way to do that really is to do a video report. The kids are so good at using cameras and videos and audio and etc. So we can give them a script support for a video report. Welcome to our sports science report. Today we learned about music and English, and then they interview people about their experience during the sports science activity. And then in the end, they make recommendations about what they think people should do. I had a really big lunch and it was very hard to run. So it's probably a good idea not to have a big meal before you do a lot of it. So really forcing them to think about what their results meant. And that's where the teacher is still involved in this piece, trying to push, the cognition, trying to push the learning. This is an extension idea that the students loved. In their classroom, they made a background, a bit like my lovely Erasmus Plus background back here for Dalkey Summer School TV. And they did role play as an interviewer and the athlete, and how did they feel after running? And they had a lot of fun with that. And again, then when they presented it to the school, there was a lot of laughter, which is so reinforcing for everybody. So that was great. You can have a mini Olympics and you can have the students commenting on it. That's really fun for the sort of B2, C1 classes. And then you can also take the results back to the classroom and have them graph the results. So you're getting that lovely cross-curricular math links. So as you can see, there's really nothing very sophisticated in what I'm showing you. This is all very basic and very easy, because I feel very strongly with CLIL that we're asked to do a lot, but that we can actually do a lot with very little. So what I would say to you about making materials is really go with what you know. Ideally, if you have a lesson that you know has been successful, well, then adapt that, because you're going to be more comfortable doing that anyway. You can use visuals. I use a lot of visuals because in our summer schools, we have students from everywhere. So there isn't even a common language. It's not that I can explain it to them in Portuguese or explain it to them in German. We have students from everywhere. So we use a lot of visuals, a lot of real things, bring the actual things in and show them to them. I do a lot of language support with sentence starters and word banks. So things like these speaking frames. So for example, if they were doing a PE exercise for the long jump, so this is how they can create a sentence from us giving them the vocabulary. Your takeoff is with the wrong foot, go and try it again. Your position in the air was too high, so you can't get length. So these substitution tables or speaking frames allow the students to make use of the language that they have more effectively. For the lower level students, you'd be thinking, I'm thinking of a man-made object. It's about as big as a cup. It is white. When you touch the object, it feels hot, etc. So those kinds of language supports are very helpful and very easy to make. We really have very little individual work. We do a lot of teamwork and student talk because we need to encourage the students to use their language as much as possible. And then we use reflection. What did we learn about the English today or this week? And again, the word of the week or the word of the day can be very helpful about that. What did we learn about the topic? So really, CLIL isn't about changing everything. It's about connecting the things you know together to make them work together and to repeat them over and over again. So that is what I wanted to say to you guys about CLIL and summer camps. If anybody has any questions, I'd be delighted to answer them. And you'll see that there are some links in the slides to materials that I have made on at various times. So you are more than welcome to use those and call them your own. But you can see that there are some Irish sites here that are quite good for marine work. I'm sure you have lots of them in your own countries, but at least these are in English. Thank you very much. Back to you, Francis.
Thank you very much. Look, we have sun in Ireland, everybody, as well. So it's
Occasionally.
very,
I know,
yes,
really, in the
something of,
summer, it's getting quite good now. Global warming is helping us a lot.
yes, it's in our favour. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I'd really like to thank everybody for joining today. Actually, that was brilliant. There were some really good
Oh, thank you.
takeaways there. That
Great.
CLIL can be quite intimidating, especially if it's not your native language yourself. But like I think, like you said, people can overcomplicate it or be overwhelmed or feel anxious. But like you
Yeah.
said, it doesn't need to be overly sophisticated. To
Yeah.
stick with what you're comfortable with. If you have some great lessons already that you can expand upon and recycle in a way. And like you said,
Absolutely.
working with summer school kids, it's making it fun and enjoyable. And I
Yes.
like that thing of the substitution things for sentence builders and
Yeah.
increasing their vocabulary within the context of a subject matter. So I don't think anybody's put any comments in the chat,
Okay.
and I
No
think
problem.
all of our European colleagues are 1 hour ahead, so they'll be getting ready
They're ready
for
for
their
bed.
dinner. Yes. So thank you very much, everybody, for joining. I hope you
Thank
found
you.
that session interesting and enjoyable. And a big thank you to Aisling. Thank you
Oh,
very
thank you.
much.
Thank you for setting it up and being so helpful, Francis. You've been a joy. Oh, something in the chat. Somebody got a question. Oh, thank you, Debbie. You're very welcome. Thank you, Alejandro. Oh, I'm glad. I'm really glad. I don't know if you have any way to send questions, but if there are questions, I will be happy to answer them. So I don't know if they go through Francis or I can give Francis my work email and people can send me questions if they want to. Thank
Well,
you for all
what
the
I'll
hearts,
do is
Matilda.
I'll be sending on the recording, Aisling, and I'll copy
Perfect.
you in also.
Lovely.
And then the people who registered have got your details and they can contact you
Great.
directly
Great.
and learn more about Lingua Viva and the great summer programs and teacher trainings that you do.
Great. And come over to one of our CLIL courses. We have fun. It's
Yes.
great. I'm glad you liked it. Thank you, Matilda. And thank you for those lovely hearts. Thank you. Thanks, Debbie. Thanks for coming, everyone. I can't see everybody on screen at once, so I can't thank everybody, but thank you very much, everyone. Goodbye now.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Thank
Take care. Have a
you.
nice evening, everybody. Bye
You
bye.
too. Thank you.
Okay. Goodbye.